Hi, my name is Olivia. As a child, I would have constant doctor's appointments, spend days in the hospital, and have different types of therapy sessions. I thought this was normal. I thought every kid experiences this. I was in public school, but I was often pulled out of class to work on different things, like reading and speech, for example. I didn't realize I was different than the other kids, that I was the only one that seemed to experience this. It wasn't until others started pointing it out to me, asking questions of why I would leave the room often, or why it was taking me longer to complete things, or why I didn't understand something. This made me feel confused because I didn't really know how to answer their questions. So I would go home asking my parents. It wasn't until I was 10 until I learned the truth and learned some answers to some of those questions I had. My parents said that they needed to talk to me about something, and that's when I learned about the accident. I was told only the basics of it since I was so young, and brain injuries are hard to understand even for adults sometimes. I was told of that there was an accident, that I was injured, and that's why some of these things are challenging for me. In one way, I liked I had an answer to the questions, but in another, it made me feel different, and I didn't want to feel that way. I just wanted to be like every other kid my age and be what is considered normal. So I would pretend nothing was wrong. I wanted to fit in like everyone else, but it was hard. I was later diagnosed with other disorders. These include anxiety, depression, OCD, and PTSD. And it didn't help that other kids noticed I was different, even though I tried my hardest to hide it. It was especially hard in middle school. It was every day I would get, it was every day I would be bullied, feeling insecure about myself. And I didn't really want to share my feelings or what was going on because I just didn't want to face it. Wasn't until I was 13 until I started to come to accepting I had a disability. My family attended this dinner event where we would hear people speak of their brain injury experiences. Usually, I would hear people who were so much older than me, and it was hard for me to relate. But at that one dinner when I was 13, there was a young man who spoke. His speech was spoken through an iPad machine because he couldn't talk at the time. But in his speech, he spoke about how he was diagnosed at a young age and how isolated he felt from his friends. I felt for the first time I could relate to someone with a traumatic brain injury. I had never met anyone who was diagnosed at a younger age, and I could relate to what he was saying. Even though this would happen, I was kind of stuck in that accepting phase. The bullying continued in school. It was so bad that I even switched to a different high school the next year. And high school, for the most part, was a good experience, except for my freshman year. My freshman year, there was a person who would physically bully me. I would have marks on my arms from scratches or hits. I got pushed into things, and I often would laugh it off or not take it as so seriously because I just wanted to fit in. And I had just switched to a new school, and I didn't want old patterns to repeat themselves. It was still hard dealing with friends, but over time, I've been able to accept things and understand things, but it hasn't always been easy. I really wanted to move forward from the accepting phase and fully understand what a traumatic brain injury was. I was told that certain things happen because of TBI, but it was kind of hard to understand all of that. Wasn't until I was about 17 or 18 when I fully came to understanding more about TBI and what that meant. When I was a senior, we had an essay we had to write where we could pick the topic. I chose to write about traumatic brain injuries. For this paper, you had to do a lot of research, and look up a bunch of different sources of different information to support your answers. So I decided to do TBI and I learned a lot about it. I learned what TBI was, the common side effects, and I could really relate to it. So I became to better understanding it. And because I could better understand it, I wanted to ask more questions about the accident, what had happened, because I don't really remember it, besides a few minor flashbacks. I did graduate high school on time, which was something that was great. And even though I did deal with a lot of social stuff, I feel it's so important to bring awareness to it. I didn't understand TBI for a really long time, and I feel it's important to bring awareness to it for even kids to understand. When I was young, there wasn't a lot of awareness, especially about pediatrics. So I feel any type of awareness, whether it's pediatrics or just everyone in general, is so important because TBI happens so often, more than we think it does. And it affects so much of us, like focusing, memory, social, organizational, balance, and so on. And it's so different for each person, but it's something we need to be aware of because then we can move forward. Thank you so much for hearing me speak, and I hope this has been helpful in any ways. Thank you very much.